What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Actually Good Coffee Podcast, the show where I talk about all things coffee related, all while I drink a cup of coffee. Took about a week off, was doing a lot of back end stuff, but we're back now. So I'm going to go over the numbers for the past 2 weeks. For the last 2 weeks in June for the year 2024, week 3, we sold 951 pounds of coffee. That is a new all-time high for Made in Coffee Roasters. Let's clap it up, everyone. For the last week of June, we also sold 764 pounds of coffee. If we're looking at the same weeks for the previous year, we sold 762 for the third week. In the final week, we sold 601 pounds. So both week higher numbers. If we're looking at the monthly average of both months, in 2023, we sold on average 695 pounds of coffee a week. For 2024, we did 792 pounds on average per week. I don't know. I'm not gonna try to make a quote. I'm not going to try to summarize that one, but we improved, and that's always a positive thing. Because we've done, this is episode 11 now. For the past 10 episodes, we've been focusing more on like kind of the background and sort of like the mentality that I've had with this whole thing. I want to shift this focus and start bringing it back to coffee a little bit more. So today I'm going to talk about an article posted by Coffee Intelligence called Why Specialty Instant Coffee Never Quite Took Off. We did an Instagram reel on this talking about K-Cups and why it actually makes a little bit more sense. It makes a lot more sense actually to go with a specialty coffee brand rather than your average K-Cup, because when you do the math, you see that you're actually spending more money per K-Cup and you're getting a worse product. This article goes into a little bit more detail about that. Essentially, because of the rise in instant coffee and just how simple it is, the specialty coffee market was looking to get their feet wet in this niche. They've been coming up with different types of solutions. There was water-soluble coffee in your instant coffee that started in the, 1890 was actually the first patent that was awarded to David Strang that created instant coffee dissolved with water. In the 1970s, a third of all imported coffee into the United States was actually turned into a freeze-dried instant. Today, when you look at the market, instant coffee actually accounts for 25% of all coffee consumed in the world. So that means that the consumption of instant coffee has been growing about 2% per year. So obviously, since the specialty market is growing, they look to get sort of involved in that niche as well. But what people don't realize is when you're working in a specialty industry that appreciates the art, they really are providing a higher quality product, you're essentially fighting the tide when you start to create a product based off of convenience alone, because luxury and convenience, it's rare that they do go together. It does happen, but in a situation like this, it's a difficult problem to solve. The first problem that you're dealing with essentially is the cost of convenience. Again, when you're dealing with higher grade products, a lot of companies try to separate themselves from their competitors, and they do different types of solutions. So I've seen, Freeze Dried by Cometer. They're a pretty large brand. They kind of took off with that market. But a lot of these brands will stick to instant water-soluble coffee like Blue Bottle. And what you see with a lot of these brands, like with Starbucks or Nestle and Blue Bottle, is the price per cup, it really ranges. Some products are costing, when you do the math, comes out to be about 14 cents per cup. But when you do it for these higher end brands, these instant coffee packets, it comes out to be around $2.50 per cup. I mean, what is that? That's more than that's about a 200% increase. Now that's about a 2,000, maybe 1,500% increase in price per cup for instant coffee. It's like at that point, you obviously might as well just be getting a regular cup of coffee from a store or making it on your own, because you're definitely going to be saving money if you're doing it on your own at that point. The other reason why specialty coffee really doesn't work as an instant soluble solution, in many countries, there are actually additional tariffs that are added on to these already pricey products that specialty brands are trying to create as a sense of convenience and also provide a still high quality product at a lower price per unit. So in countries like Germany and Romania, they actually have additional tariffs on specifically soluble coffee. And that really eats into the revenue. While specialties soluble products may have blundered, other convenient products like drip bags have seen more success. So there are other solutions to this instant coffee idea. You'll see with a brand like La Colombe, what they do is they have these little like sachet bags. They essentially come in like a tear off cover, and it's like a drip coffee mini pour over that you attach to your mug, and it's like a one-time use, very instant thing. Apparently companies have found a lot more success, but even with these coffee packs that are like these mini drip pour overs, you still do run into these issues because you're essentially creating even more thin margin products within an already thin margin industry. It doesn't give you much wiggle room to be creative. And I think that's one of the main difficulties that a lot of these specialty brands are running into, because there are so many brands out there, and it's like, how many different ways can you separate yourself from the market? So I actually ran into an issue that was similar to this at one point. There was a small hotel group in our area that was looking to upscale their offerings in-house. One of the ways that they were trying to do that is have essentially better coffee offerings. So we had a lot of back and forth. Basically, the problem that they were running into was that they don't have a grinder in-house. Usually a commercial grinder runs you about $1,000+. They didn't want to spend the money because in hotels, margins again are pretty thin, and they didn't want to exercise any more of that initial capital investment. So what we were trying to do is figure out a way to portion out these individual like 2-ounce bags that they can just use for their drip coffee machine or for their customers as like a in-room service option. We did about a week and a half worth of testing, and we found that after about a week of grinding, specialty coffee really does tend to drop off in quality and grade. After about months and months of back and forth with these people, we realized that just now is probably not a good time to do this. And I think a lot of people, especially starting off, will do whatever they can to get that client. But what I've found, and especially the more that I'm getting involved with Maiden, is that you can try to cater your offering to best fit their system, but in the end, sometimes it's just going to bite you in the ass, and you're dealing with so much more headache for a client that might not even be buying a ton of your product. I think that's where a lot of specialty coffee brands go wrong, or just any brand in general, is that they're just trying to essentially change their offering so that it better fits their client, and in the end, they're just dealing with more stress and not even that much profit in the end. Basically, what we came to the conclusion was at some point they're actually going to be opening up a cafe, maybe in the next year or so, and then we would regroup, see if we can come up with a solution, maybe even build out their bar for them. But for now, we were just going to remain separate. They were going to be getting some other brand that was a little bit cheaper and easier to use. And I'm okay with that. I actually think that in the end, we both came out pretty well, all things considered. We learned something by doing these studies and these tests and trying to figure out how long it was going to take for this coffee quality to drop off, and even in the end, if it would really be worth it. And we realized it wasn't. Now I have less on my plate that I have to deal with, because I'm not going to have to completely change our system in order to provide for a client that wouldn't be buying that much volume in general. And they now have a more convenient option that they can offer their clients, that they can do less work on their end. Doesn't involve them investing more capital for those upfront costs. And I think everybody just wins in that situation. So I think it's something to keep in mind if you're pursuing something on your own. I know at first you're always trying to get any client that you possibly can, but sometimes you just have to cut your losses and realize that it's going to be a lot more stress in the end that you don't need, especially starting off. Just take a loss and move on. And maybe you find a better client, buys more volume, pays a higher premium for your product, involves less work. You figure it out. Thank you guys for listening. I really appreciate it. And I will talk to you again very soon.